So we're going to talk a little bit now about stat cards. So these are really important to Kings of War Vanguard, and you get a set of these stat cards in every single pack, whether it's a starter pack or a booster pack. And presumably in future, when they reduce mercenaries and sort of one-off characters, you'll also get a stat card with those as well. Now, stat cards are essentially exactly the same as you get with the 8 models that you get in each of the 14 factions in the core rulebook. But I probably anticipate that in the future these stat cards will evolve perhaps a little bit more, maybe get different variants of sort of base models, particularly if they bring in resin arms, which has been mentioned a few times, so you can upgrade models. I also expect that there may be some crossover with stat cards from Kings of War models and perhaps some Dungeon Saga models as well. And obviously we'd expect those to go, those Vanguard models to also go back into Kings of War at some point. So if we take a look at the stat card, you can see this is a snow troll from the Northern Alliance. But before we start looking at the model itself and what it can do, you see there's a few core things that are similar throughout all of the stat cards, whatever the faction is. And these similarities give a nice visual continuity between the stat cards themselves. So if we start with the top left, you can see that in this circle here, there is an icon, and that icon is specific to the faction itself. So this is the Northern Alliance icon you can see here. And you get different ones, obviously, for each different faction. You can then see a lovely piece of art. Sometimes it will be a model with some art behind it, and sometimes it will be an artist impression like it is in this case. And I presume that just depends on whether the models were ready when they were making the stat cards. Moving on to the actual model itself, in the top banner, you've got the name of the model. So this is really important because names can potentially be keywords as well for certain faction abilities. So a snow troll is not the same as a snow troll prime, for instance. It tells you their base size in the same banner, and then to the far right, you can see a points cost. And this will vary quite widely from something perhaps as low as 6 points for a weak goblin grunt, maybe, up to something that maybe even 50 or so points, a fair chunk of your faction in a standard 200-point game. Just below the initial banner, it tells you what the race or species of the creature is. So in this case, a troll. It also then tells you what class they are. So in this case, a large model, but obviously there are other classes as well. So grunts being the weakest, warriors being your standard fighters. Large being the big models, such as this one, but then also other specialist models such as support, spellcaster, or command, and all of those have different abilities depending on what that keyword is. Below that we have the stat line itself, and then from left to right you've got speed, so this is the distance you can move in inches for a move action, which is a short action. If you wanted to make a run, or if that contacted an enemy that would immediately become a charge, you would use double this distance, again in inches. You've got the melee stat, so this is what you have to roll on a d8 to achieve a hit in melee. And the number of dice you roll will come on to in a moment. You've got a range stat, in this case dash, so this actual model can't actually make a ranged attack at all. And you use the same range stat whether you're using missiles such as bows or arrows or spells. We have an armor stat, so this is your ability to save or ward off damage. You have a nerve stat, essentially your sort of willpower or ability to stay in the fight against fear or your warband falling apart in front of your eyes. Then we have wounds. 5 is quite a lot. There aren't many things that are going to have more than 5 wounds, and most models will have just 1 or 2. And then finally at the end we've got height. Now height is really important and is slightly different from Kings of War, even though it's a clear crossover from the way height works in Kings of War. The difference here is that normal size models, like 28mm humans for instance, or orcs, would be height 2. And that means that a completely flat surface would be height 0, whereas something low and in the way would be height 1, normal models height 2, bigger models such as the snow troll or cavalry height 3, and so on and so forth. And much like in Kings of War, if you've got a height 3 model standing on a height 2 hill, then the total height is height 5, and that's important when you come to determining a line of sight. There are also certain rules as well, such as cavalry, who will benefit if they're attacking a model of a lower height than them. So cavalry being height 3, if you're attacking a normal infantryman of height 2, you'll get a bonus to that. So beneath the stat line, you get the special abilities. And some models may have none, but in this case, this troll has several. It has Regenerate on a 6+, which means at the start of every round, he can roll a dice for each wound he has, and on a 6+, he'll be able to recover that wound. So that's really quite powerful, particularly on a strong model such as the Snow Troll, who it's going to be hard to wound anyway. Importantly, Regenerate doesn't benefit from the exploding 8s, so bear that in mind when you're playing against this model. It also has Vicious, which means you can re-roll 1s in melee, always useful, and that's a straight crossover from Kings of War, of course. And then we have Crushing Strength 2, which means that someone's armor save will be reduced by 2 when they're trying to prevent wounds. So if they had an armor of 4+ like the Snow Troll, they'd actually then be rolling on 6s. So again, really quite powerful. Beneath these special abilities, it then tells you which dice you roll when you make different attacks. Now, we don't have a ranged ability here, so this Snow Troll can't make a ranged attack at all. Now, you may have some models that have a ranged value of, say, 1d8, but they don't come with a ranged weapon. And that's fine, because it's there so that if they do gain a bow or something like that, that they have a stat, they have a number of dice dictated for what they actually roll. However, this Snow Troll does one thing and he does it well, and that is fight. So in melee, he rolls a mighty 4d8. So that's 4d8 he will roll each time he fights, plus any extra dice, obviously, that you've gained from power or charging, for instance. And each of those dice will need a 5+ to do damage, because that's the melee stat for this Snow Troll. On the same line, we have his alignment, which perhaps surprisingly is good, but that's what the Northern Alliance are. As a faction, they are on the good side. And if you look back in their fluff, although there's not too much of it at the moment, it basically is explaining that they're also fighting against the Abyss. Underneath the Dice and Alignment tab, you can see an empty space. Now, that's because for the Snow Troll, he doesn't have any set equipment that comes with him. But some models will have perhaps a bow or a certain weapon that comes with them as standard, and that would be included here with details of, say, a range, for instance, if it was a ranged weapon. And then finally, at the very bottom is this large box. Now, this box is sort of extra rules, as it were. So in this case, from the Snow Troll, it has the Vicious Swipe special rule. It says, when attempting to break away from a troll, enemy models have a -1 modifier when they make their armor save. And that's because to break away, anyone can do it, and you have to make one power dice. Anyone can do it, and you have to make one armor save, but of course with a -1 modifier from the Snow Troll in this case. There may also sometimes, in certain models, be unique power abilities that a model may bring, and they would be written down here as well. Or perhaps some benefits from certain weapons that they take, if those weapons aren't standard ones. So you, for instance, in the same Northern Alliance list, there is the Ice Naiad, who has a Frost Trident. And that Frost Trident has some special rules which are written in this box on its stat card. So there we are, that's an overview of the stat cards. They look brilliant, they're beautifully coloured, lovely art, and really nicely laid out, so they're easy to sort of work your way around, and they all follow exactly the same profile, so that if you work your way around one stat card, you'll know your way around all of them very quickly. And I think these are going to be a very useful thing to have. You just line these up by the side of your table. You don't have to get your book out at all. You can literally just play the game with your stat cards. The only thing they don't have at the moment is equipment cards. I don't know whether these are coming out later, so if you bought extra equipment for these models, you'd have to sort of note that down separately somewhere. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that talk through of a stat card. Obviously this is only one example, and the best thing to do will be just to get the extra ones that come in the starters and the booster boxes and have a look at them, because they are really quite nice and they're going to make your games of Kings of War Vanguard run a lot more smoothly.